Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you this morning to Vista Buddhist Temple Sunday Dharma Service. We're very fortunate this morning to have with us in person Reverend Ellen Crane. It's been over 2 years since we've been able to see each other in person. Welcome, Sensei. It's great to see you. I'm sure she'll tell us a little something about it later, but a little birdie actually told me that Reverend Crane had a major milestone this week, and she graduated from the Institute of Buddhist Studies. So congratulations, Sensei. Before we get started, I want to take a minute. I feel compelled to speak about the events that have been happening in our country in the last 10 days. We've had multiple racist attacks in Buffalo, in Dallas, in Laguna Woods, and we've lost lives in both the Black and Asian American communities. The traumatic ripple effects of these events can't be overstated. Buddhism teaches us about interdependence, interconnectedness, the oneness of reality, and loving kindness. When we read our Shin Buddhist life principles together aloud in the Hondo, we close with the last line: I will work toward the welfare of society and the world. Today, I would like to invite you to join me in reflecting how we can live that life principle more fully, both individually and as a Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. We will now have sutra chanting led by Reverend Crane. We'll begin with Sambujo on page 29 and continue with Junirai on page 49 of your service book. If you're joining via Zoom, they will be projected for you. Thank you.
主権臨職業阿弥陀千両独尊大悲微妙安楽無量無視主因念金色心情如千のシャマダ行如道部両目上略小蓮華小が将来弥陀尊年前自論両万月意の有如千日月少女天空しら子が将来弥陀尊安穏頂戴観中中主従名相法諸言の仏下道魔けうまん子が将来弥陀尊無義無空故少女修徳見見予告小さり悪徳自在子が将来弥陀尊自公明門菩薩衆無量小魔上三段一生修上願力自由子が将来弥陀尊本体保険知証言伝言少女名在座大膝上如千の子が将来弥陀尊実法将来諸仏師権現実師安楽戦後尊厳上苦行子が将来弥陀尊小
And now Reverend Ellen will deliver her Dharma talk. Welcome again, Sensei.
All right, great. All right, does that look good? Are we all good? Okay, very good. I have to thank Julie for mentioning the fact that I did finally graduate from the Institute of Buddhist Studies this past week. I am almost the longest student they ever had in existence. It took me 12 years to do a master's program, and I am relieved more than anything that I'm done. It was a tremendous experience. I'm so happy that I was able to go there, and they were able to accommodate the fact that I couldn't be there up in Berkeley. They instituted some online courses, and I was able to be a remote student. The downside of that was that I wasn't on campus. I wasn't interacting with other students, with professors, going out to lunch with people, but I couldn't have done it any other way than what I did. So I'm so grateful, so appreciative that they were able to accommodate that for me. Never thought that I would be doing anything like that, but I have to thank Reverend Harada for encouraging me to go ahead and enroll. And 12 years later, here I am. Ricky Schlesinger, who is here, has joked and said, well, you got a PhD, right? You were there long enough. So there's a joke among our group, and he's on the everydaybuddhist.org steering committee. And so he jokes and calls me Dr. Ellen now. So I'm not a doctor, but anyway, it's kind of great. And I also have to say that today's Dharma talk, I specifically told Ricky yesterday, because he was up at OCBC yesterday for a Everyday Buddhist meeting that we had, that today I would have a message that was going to be very much in line with what we're trying to do with Everyday Buddhist. One of the things that we are trying to do with our online school is to make Buddhism very contemporary, very relevant, very accessible, and in a way that will resonate and make sense to people here in the West in the 21st century. You know, Buddhism has been around for 2,500 years. Many of the things that originally worked in terms of the message don't work anymore. And so every time Buddhism has moved to a new culture and moved through time, it has adapted and changed. And we are at a point now, I think a very critical point in the West and in America for bringing the Shin Buddhist message to a new audience, a new culture, a new society in a way that will make sense to them. So hopefully my message today will touch on some of that. And I'll talk to Ricky afterwards to see if I delivered. So we'll see. So let's get into it and begin. So my title today is called Discover the Pure Land. And as you know, we are a Pure Land school. Shin Buddhism is what we call ourselves here in the West, but in Japan, we are referred to as Jodo Shinshu, and the meaning which is true school of the Pure Land. So we are Pure Land Buddhists, and I think Dr. Haneda, and rightly so, says that the idea of the Pure Land is probably one of the most difficult things to understand about us. What is the Pure Land? How do you make sense of it? Is it like a heaven? And I'm hoping that I will give you a different perspective, a different way to think about it so that it doesn't seem so foreign and it will be something that you can connect to. So today, we did the Junidai, and it originated, as my slide shows, in the Mahayana tradition of India during the time of Pure Land Master Nagarjuna, which was in basically the 2nd century of the Common Era. So a long time ago. And like the largest sutra and the Amida Sutra, the text of the Junidai describes the spiritual qualities of Amida and the Pure Land using very poetic language. So how are we supposed to understand that? As he mentioned, or as it was just mentioned, the Pure Land is also talked about in the largest sutra of immeasurable life. Here we see some Chinese text, and the largest sutra also comes to us from around the 1st century of the Common Era. So this is a very ancient text. It's an ancient idea that there is this land called the Pure Land, and how are we supposed to understand it? So here's some examples of the Pure Land Sutras as they're presented today. And I brought my copies of these books. I have the 3 Pure Land Sutras, Volume 2, which is where the largest sutra is located. This is the BDK English version of the 3 Pure Land Sutras. Both of these were primarily written by Hisao Inagaki. This book was written in 1995, and this one came out in 2009, later. But they're more up. This is a more updated version, but it's written in English, so there's a translation. You don't have to know Chinese or classical Chinese to understand what it says. And basically, the largest sutra of immeasurable life is our largest sutra. We have 3 main sutras. That's the largest sutra, the contemplation sutra, and the Amida Sutra. Well, the largest sutra, which is the longest of all of our sutras in these books, entail about 100 pages. Very short. It's not like you really need to read a lot to get the essence of the largest sutra. So maybe that's something some of you might be interested in doing at some point. All of it's very poetically written and maybe a little bit hard to understand. But the thing that the larger sutra does explain is what is in the Pure Land. So basically there's 3 elements. Oh, yeah, I guess I got to back up a little bit. So today's talk is coming from the work, the writings of Dr. Nobuo Haneda, who has long been one of my teachers. His book, Dharma Breeze, has been kind of a cornerstone for my study and my understanding of the Buddha Dharma. This is an older version of this book, Dharma Breeze. I guess they updated the cover and now it's available on Amazon. But this is a wonderful book for trying to understand Shin Buddhism in a way that is accessible. And so today my talk will come primarily from this book and the thoughts that he shares with us about the Pure Land. So to begin, as I mentioned, the largest sutra does talk about the Pure Land. And basically, the question is, how are we to understand the Pure Land? Well, in ancient times, people probably thought of the Pure Land as a place like heaven, a place where you go to after you die, a wonderful place where you can listen to the Dharma and get enlightenment. And that was probably the understanding back 2,000 years ago. And maybe for a lot of people during that entire time. But even Tan Luan, who was our second master of the 7 masters, said that if people hear that they will constantly experience pleasure in the Pure Land and desire to be born there because of that, he says they will not be born there, because the Pure Land thinking of it in that way is based on our own human desires and wants and our own needs and things that we think will bring pleasure to us. And that's really not how we need to be thinking of the Pure Land. And Tan Luan was very aware of that even 1,500 years ago, because he lived from 476 to 542. So this idea of maybe characterizing the Pure Land and not like a hell, a heaven realm, and a place that maybe we go to just after we die. We want to think about it in a completely different way. Today, I want to talk to you about how we can find the Pure Land in our own lives today, here and now. Okay, so when they talk about the Pure Land in the sutras, it basically describes three things. It gives wonderful flowing descriptions of Amida. It talks about the Bodhisattvas, the people who are there, and a Bodhisattva, if you may or may not know, is someone who aspires to be a Buddha. So there are Bodhisattvas in the Pure Land, and then it describes the physical characteristics of the Pure Land. So one of the points that Dr. Haneda wants us to know is that how are we going to understand these elements of the Pure Land that are written very beautifully, very poetically? And he says, we have to understand that they are all symbols, that they are symbolic of something deeper and something more accessible for us, something that's more real. So he goes through in his article, what does Amida really mean? So first he talks about the fact in the Larda Sutra, Amida is this king called Dharmakara who becomes a seeker. And he wants to emulate, he meets a teacher by the name of Lokeshvara. Dharmakara is so excited, wants to become a Buddha, like Lokeshvara. And so what Lokeshvara tells Dharmakara is, you must become a perpetual seeker. You need to go to all the Buddhas in the 10 directions and learn from them. And so he goes and he does that for 10 kalpas. He goes to all the Buddhas and he engages in something we call kuyo practice, which means going to teachers and learning. So this is a practice that he engaged in. So then Dharmakara, after 10 kalpas, becomes a Buddha by the name of Namu Amida Butsu, which is the same thing as Amida Buddha. Namu Amida Butsu, according to Dr. Haneda, means bowing Amida Buddha. Now, there's a lot of ways that we talk about what Amida represents. We talk about Amida being infinite compassion, infinite wisdom, infinite reality. But here he characterizes Amida as bowing Amida Buddha. And bowing is someone who has great humility, someone who wants to learn from all things. So this is the characteristic of Amida Buddha. Then the Larda Sutra talks about Bodhisattvas, who again, as I mentioned, are beings who also wish to become a Buddha. So they go to the Pure Land to hear the Dharma, to be in the presence of Amida, so that they can hear and listen to the Dharma and hopefully someday become a Buddha themselves. And then it talks about the Pure Land and describes in very intricate details the beautiful ponds and the jeweled trees and the birds that are singing. But Dr. Haneda says that all of those sounds are giving off messages of the Dharma. Every sound that you're hearing is just reinforcing the Dharma. So it's not so much that you're in this wonderful land of bliss where everything's beautiful and you have no wants and everybody is the same. One of the things that they say is everyone that goes to the Pure Land is of a gold color. And that means that we are all the same. There's no distinctions between people based on any other characteristics. We are equal. So what he says is that all of these things in the Pure Land is for a way for those beings and the things that are trying to gain enlightenment or Buddhahood. They're just listening to the Dharma. It's a place where you hear the Dharma. So as Dr. Haneda says, the essence of the three components of the Pure Land is the same. It is the Dharma, the truth of impermanence, which really is what the Dharma is all about, the idea of becoming one with impermanence. Amida is a perfect seeker and the embodiment of the truth of impermanence, and his spirit of perfect studentship pervades everywhere. All people in the land are diligently learning to have his spirit, and everything in the land is teaching the Dharma. So what then does the Pure Land symbolize? So this is the big reveal. Dr. Haneda says it's the Sangha. He says, this is a place where a teacher and students are wholeheartedly and sincerely seeking the Dharma. So according to Dr. Haneda, and also according to Professor Binjin Yasuda, this is the Pure Land. And so I would like to read a quote from Reverend Yasuda. People say various things about birth in the Pure Land, but could there be any greater, quote, birth in the Pure Land, unquote, than the fact that we are now sitting and learning the Dharma together? This place where we are listening to the Dharma together is the Pure Land. Our being allowed to be part of this place, of this Sangha, is, quote, birth in the Pure Land, unquote. Do you think that you can have anything greater than this in your life? The fact that you are listening to the Dharma as a member of the Sangha? Some people may speak about the wonderful things to be obtained in the Pure Land after death, but those things are nothing but projections of human greed. The fact that we are privileged to be part of the Sangha is our liberation and our birth in the Pure Land. So, very concrete way to think about the Pure Land, that it is here now, and it is right here where you are sitting. And I love this characterization of the Pure Land. There's nothing more that we need than to be sitting here listening to the Dharma. So then we ask the question, or this is Professor Bijin Yasuda, and he actually was born in 1900, so he's a 20th century teacher and scholar, and a very important teacher for all of us, and especially Dr. Haneda. So now we ask the question, why was the Pure Land created? And the answer is, for the liberation of the inferior, which is all of us. I don't like to think of myself as inferior, but according to the Contemplation Sutra, if anyone has ever studied it, they outline 9 levels of practitioners or Buddhists. And there's actually 3 categories of practitioners, from the poorest to the middlest to the high. And then within each of those major characterizations, they break them down into also 3, low, middle, high, so that there are a total of 9 levels of Buddhist seekers. And so according to the larger sutra, Amida contemplated for 5 kalpas, which is a long time, on how to create a place so that even the lowest of the low could also attain Buddhahood. and the Pure Land, creating a Pure Land was how he envisioned that he would be able to do that. And so that means that Amida envisioned a place for everyone, for anyone who wanted to seek Buddhahood. There was a vehicle, there was a way for them to attain enlightenment. I mean, as you know, there are many forms of Buddhism. Many of them are monastic. Many of them are very, very strict in terms of the kinds of rules that they have to follow, or the ways that they are taught, or that they are to learn to gain Buddhahood or enlightenment. I think we have all seen pictures of Zen monasteries. You're familiar with the Dalai Lama and Tibetan Buddhism. It's a very stringent and difficult path, and which is not to say that those are not ways for some people to gain enlightenment and Buddhahood, but for all the rest of us who are, according to Shinran's writings, who are Bombu, who are foolish beings, who live everyday lives, who cannot renounce the world, who want to have jobs and families and deal with all the things that everyday people deal with, we get put into sort of the inferior group, in that lowest group, and maybe even the lowest of the low group, and that's exactly where Shinran thought he was. He considered himself the lowest of the low. And this is from someone who spent 20 years on Mount Hiei trying to reach Buddhahood, following the precepts of Tendai. And he was so honest and so open to and true to his own thoughts and understanding of himself, that he recognized that he couldn't eliminate all of his blind passions and all of his cravings, and that it was impossible. And so that's why he went to seek out Honen, who taught him another way to access Buddhahood, and that was through the Nembutsu. And the other part was what we call deep listening. So when you come to the temple, you are listening to the Dharma, and it's analogous to the analogy that Dr. Haneda talks about smoked salmon. And all of you may, or many of you may be familiar with this analogy, but he talks about the fact that coming to the temple is sort of like being an uncooked fillet of salmon. You are just the salmon who doesn't know anything, but wants awakening, wants liberation, wants either Buddhahood, enlightenment, whatever. They're seeking a life that is going to be much more meaningful and fulfilling for themselves. So they come to the temple, and like a smoked salmon who is just this piece of fish, the salmon gets put into a smoke box, and through no effort of its own, this salmon becomes smoked. It gets permeated with the smell of the smoke until finally it becomes smoked salmon. So, like smoked salmon, we become perfumed with the Dharma just by sitting here, listening, coming to the temple, participating with the Sangha. We become permeated and kind of just imbued with the Dharma by the fact that we are here. So it's important for us to be here. And that probably is the most important thing that we can all do as Shin Buddhists, is to put ourselves in situations where we can listen to the Dharma, where it is going to be accessible for us, so that we can listen to the words of our teachers. And that was another thing that I really appreciated about Dr. Haneda. He talked about Amida not in some abstract way, but Amida is manifested in all of the historical teachers that have ever lived, who have been here to give writings and lectures. I mean, many of our historical teachers are like the 7 patriarchs or 7 masters, Shinran, people who are long since dead, but through their writings, we understand and know what they said. But each of us have had experiences with real live human beings in our temples. When you go to seminars, when you go to conferences, when you hear a Dharma talk, you are being exposed to real live human beings who can give you some sense of what the Dharma is trying to awaken us to being one with the existence of impermanence and also being aligned with that impermanence. I think we have all experienced a tremendous challenge the last 2 years with COVID and trying to get a handle of how do we reconcile the things that have happened to the world in the past 2 years or more. And I think our Buddhist teachings will help us to come to an acceptance, come to ways to adapt to what these circumstances have brought to us in a way that makes us all better. I think we think about maybe some of the positive things that have come out of the fact that we have had to change so many aspects of our lives. And I think that's what Buddhism and the Buddhist teachings bring to each of us, is this adaptability, this open mind to looking at our lives and the world in a much different way. And that's what being one with impermanence is being able to shift and pivot and change and adapt in a way that is meaningful and fulfilling. And so hopefully that's what being Buddhist and being a part of the teachings and the Sangha has been able to do. I'm really glad that we're now able to come back to the temple, and hopefully we will continue to increase in our numbers. I think all the temples are struggling with how to do that. I'm very grateful for the ways that the Dharma has been accessible online through the BCA. There are continuing Buddhist education courses. There have been many seminars in Hawaii, and we've had some from Canada even, but the Dharma is there and it's for us to access. And maybe the pandemic has forced us to do it in that way, in a way that we're not able to one-on-one. Hopefully, as we come out of the pandemic, we'll combine both our in-person and our online presence to really reach out to many, many more people. And I'm hoping that will be the case. Okay, so I want to end. Oh, and here's some members of the Sangha. I always like to throw in a picture of my mom in Sachi Ochiai with Dr. Haneda. This is from actually about 5 years ago. Sachi passed away 2 years ago, and my mom is now 100 and a half. And she doesn't look that good anymore, but she's still alive. So I will end with a final passage from Dr. Haneda, where he says, realistically speaking, among the 3 treasures, that is, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha is the most important. Becoming a member of the Sangha, of a living tradition, is the most important thing in Buddhism. It is the Sangha that enables us to gain insight into the Buddha and the Dharma. Thus, Shin Buddhism says that the birth in the Pure Land, the Sangha, is the most important thing. Our birth in the Pure Land, our becoming part of the Sangha, is our liberation. Please join me in Gasho. I'm so grateful to be a part of this Sangha. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for that, Reverend Ellen. And we are so grateful to have you as part of our Sangha. Now we will be continuing with our Buddhist readings. And please join me in reading aloud the loving kindness meditation. It's on page 26 in your service book, and it will be projected on screen for those of you on Zoom. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May I be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to me. May I live in peace and harmony. May my family be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my teachers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my friends be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May strangers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my enemies be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. Namo. 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 Now we will be moving on to announcements. So first, I actually want to give an acknowledgement of thanks to anyone who participated this week in the BWA fundraiser with Panda Express. I think it was a great success. So whether you personally did it, whether those of you on Zoom did it, your friends, your family, please let them know that we appreciate all their consumption of good food. We also would like to welcome if we have any new visitors here in person or on Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again, whether in person or on Zoom. In terms of upcoming events, next Sunday we actually will not be meeting here at the temple. We will be having our Memorial Day service at Eternal Hills Memorial Park in Oceanside, so please feel free to join. There will be no Zoom of that because it is offsite. It will be completely in person. And then on June 5th, we will be having our hybrid Dharma service again at 10 a.m. on Sunday. If you need more information on either event, please contact the temple at vbt@vbtemple.org. And of course, we have our regularly scheduled events. We have our online Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Zoom sessions, mindfulness in Shin Buddhism. Join us for meditation, chanting, listening, and reflection. And we also have our online Dharma recovery meeting Sundays at 12:30 via Zoom. And then we do have Dharma School Connection, both today and June 5th. And of course, that's still at Zoom at this point. So again, if you need any more information, vbt@vbtemple.org. So this concludes the family portion of today's service. I'd like to thank again Reverend Ellen for joining us today and giving us the great to-the-point Dharma talk. And I'd like to thank both Terry and Sterling for the ongoing help with our Zoom setup so that we can continue to offer these hybrid services. And of course, I'd like to thank everyone who joined, whether you're here in person, where it's so great to see your faces, or for those of you who are online. I think at this point, we will be moving into our adult discussion led by Reverend Crane, and Terry will be helping us through the magic of Zoom. I believe there's going to be a breakout session where folks are easily migrated to on Zoom so that we can allow for the Dharma School students to come in at the same time. So please join me on Gasha. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Namanda.